Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about conflict. So please make sure that you have your notes out and that you are ready to go. Okay, so we're just going to start out with something simple, which is what is conflict? Conflict is the dramatic struggle between two forces in a story. Without conflict, there is no plot. So conflict is the problem in the story. So to get more specific, we have external versus internal conflict. So external conflict is a struggle between a character and an outside force. For example, in Finding Nemo, you have Marlin and Dory versus the shark. The shark is an outside force. An internal conflict is a struggle that takes place inside a character's mind where they have to make a decision. So this is where a lot of times you'll see the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, tempting both of them, trying to convince someone to make a certain decision. So internal conflict is all about decision making. Okay. So man versus self is the one and only type of internal conflict. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie 127 Hours, but it's also a book. It started out as a nonfiction book, which means it's a true story, and the main character, Aaron Ralston, has to decide what to do when his arm gets caught in the crevice. And if you've ever seen the movie, he has to decide basically either he has to cut his arm off or he's going to die. And neither of those are favorable choices, but they are two choices. And he decides in the end that he's going to cut his arm off, which is a feat most people couldn't handle. Okay, so here are many, not all, but many examples of external conflict. So you can see here you have common ones like man versus man versus nature, and then you have ones that are more uncommon like man versus community or society, man versus machine and technology, man versus supernatural, man versus animal and beast, man versus fate. And then over here on the other side you have the one and only type of internal conflict, man versus himself or herself. Alright, so these are all the different types of external conflict. Man versus man, this is when people oppose other people. And a lot of times people think that this is a physical opposition, because many times it is. But you can also oppose someone just by getting in an argument with them and being mad at them for a while. So it's not always physical. Okay, then you have man versus community or society, and this is where people fight against the expectations that society has for them. So I want you to think in your mind of a movie that you have seen where the main character has to fight against some expectation that society has for them. So in this case, if you've ever seen the movie Brave, Merida has to fight against the expectation that she is going to be a ladylike princess and that she is going to marry one of the suitors that her parents present for her. Okay, so make sure that you have an example of your own written down for man versus community or society. Okay, man versus nature. This is where people fight the elements of nature, and I liked this picture. I saw the movie clips for 2012, but I never actually saw the movie. There's a lot of science fiction-y type movies like this where the end of the world is predicted and some freak of nature happens. It doesn't have to be something like that. It could be something like the movie Twister, where there's a ton of tornadoes that wreak havoc. So it's not always the end of the world. It's just part of nature that you have to fight against. Or it could even be like you're out in the jungle and you have to like know that some leaves are poisonous and if you eat them, you'll die. Okay. This is man versus machine or technology. People fight machines and technology that usually possess a mind of their own and cause problems for the main characters. This type is often found in science fiction. Alright, so this picture with Will Smith is from I, Robot, where the robots kind of grow a mind of their own and take over, and then they have to be defeated. And then the picture on the bottom right is from War of the Worlds. Okay, man versus supernatural. The characters fight against supernatural forces like witches, gods and goddesses, and ghosts. So both of these pictures are from Snow White and the Huntsman, the most recent Snow White movie. So you have the evil witch here who has supernatural powers, and she ends up getting to Snow White by convincing her to eat an apple that has poison in it. And the supernatural power is her ability to put poison in the apple and transform herself and convince Snow White to eat the apple. So anytime you have anything like witches, gods, goddesses, ghosts, things like that, it's going to be a man versus supernatural conflict. Okay, so man versus animal or beast. Characters fight against animals or beasts like those in fairy tales as well as Greek mythology. And these are two funny pictures of cartoony type conflicts, animal or beast versus man. But you can also have realistic man versus animal or beast conflicts. Like I read an article about 3 siblings who went for a run in the woods, and there were a bunch of pit bulls who attacked them and did serious injury to them. So in that case, it was still men, plural, versus animals, all the pit bull dogs. Nothing against pit bulls, just an example. Okay, and then man versus fate. People cannot avoid the fate that awaits them, although they try to dodge it. If you've ever seen the movie Premonition with Sandra Bullock, in that movie, she gets these dreams, and it's hard for her to tell the difference between reality and the dream, where she thinks her husband's going to die. Her husband does die. He's dead for a while. Then she realizes that it hasn't really happened, so she tries to prevent the accident, and in the end, this is a spoiler alert, he still ends up dying, even though she tried to stop it, but he dies in a slightly different way than what she saw in her premonitions. So that would be an example of fate. Even though they tried to dodge her husband's fate, he still ended up dying. And then this bottom one here is from Hercules, Greek mythology. Those are the fates, who, if they cut your string of life, then it's your fate to die. Okay, so for this one, I just want you to match up each type of conflict to the examples on the right. Okay, so Simba has to decide. Keyword is decide. That would be man versus himself. There's a decision involved. If George Clooney gets caught in a hurricane, that would be man versus nature. Hurricanes are part of nature. Witches, that's the key word in the third one, should automatically make you think supernatural. Computers is the key word in the green one there. They grow minds of their own and take over the world. That's man versus machine or technology. Rosa Parks refuses to take the seat in the back of the bus. That is obviously a real life example of man versus society, where society has certain expectations in the past for groups of people like black people, and she tried to defy that, went against society's expectations. And then Scar kills Mufasa. That's man versus man, for the sake of the Disney movie, but lion versus lion, I guess, in actuality. Did you get all of them right? I hope so. Okay, so the conflicts are usually resolved at the story's end. And only one other thing to think about, there can be, and usually there are, several different types of conflict in one story, because conflict is what makes everything interesting. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.